What is up, boys and girls? Welcome back to another episode of the Sacred Giggle podcast. As always, this is your host, Ashish, aka ShiShi, aka the slightly spicier Pisces. My guest on the show today is Theo Zgraggen. Now, I came across Theo on Instagram pretty randomly, and I immediately got really drawn into his world because I just felt a deep resonance with the way that he looks at the world, the way that he looks at life, and the way that he treats everything in life as an opportunity for artistic expression. Theo is a multidisciplinary artist. He paints, he's an incredible videographer, and he's also a coach. So there's a lot of similarities between him and myself. You know, we both are expressing ourselves in a lot of different mediums and also directly helping people one-on-one to access more authenticity and creative expression within themselves. So I knew that I wanted to get to know Theo better. And the more I dove into his world, the more I found myself feeling really inspired and just very aligned with the way that he looks at things. And this is honestly one of my favorite conversations on the show in quite some time, because Theo, you'll hear and you'll feel, is really embodying what his message and purpose is as an artist. And there's some moments in the show that he even really challenges some assumptions that I made. And I found myself walking away from this conversation feeling really renewed and invigorated and curious about some new ways of looking at the world that I really picked up from Theo. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear this. And without further ado, here is my conversation with Theo Zgraggen. First of all, it's so great to meet you. Thank you for agreeing to do this. And I don't even know how I found your page. It might have honestly been, there's like a couple hashtags on Instagram that I follow just to try to find like-minded people. And maybe it was that, but I rarely have come across someone on the internet where I just felt like, wow, this person's mission seems to be so aligned with what I'm trying to do. And just, yeah, it's pretty wild. And just before this call, I was checking out some of your stuff. And I mean, there's a lot to check out, but I was on your website. And I want to, just for the listeners of the show, because the people who listen to the show obviously know me really well, I want to just read something that you wrote on your website that really, really resonated with me. And I think that will just give us the ammunition we need to get into this.
Go right ahead.
So I'm just going to read this and then we'll get into it. So you wrote on your website, "I'm passionate as hell about helping artists and shadow artists," which I love that. We're definitely going to get into that, "unleash their authentic expression because embracing my own was the key to my happiness. I didn't expect to become an artist. In fact, after high school, I was moving in the exact opposite direction. I was pursuing the goal of becoming a medical doctor. I studied biomedical science at the University of Ottawa and achieved a perfect GPA. The people around me celebrated, but I was deeply miserable. It took years of self-discovery, self-education, and failure after failure after failure to realize that I kept running away from my true calling to be an artist. Letting go of the need to prove that I was normal and deciding once and for all that I would follow my heart was the best decision I've ever made. If the world convinced me that I shouldn't pursue art as a career, then there must be hundreds of thousands of brilliant artists hiding in the shadows of who they're supposed to be. That's a tragedy to me."
Holy shit. I can't believe I wrote that.
Mic drop, dude.
Wow.
Holy shit. I don't think I could have, I feel like if I hired a copywriter to put my mission into words, they would come up with that. So we're incredibly aligned on that. And I mean, there's a lot of different directions we can go in that. And I think I would love to kind of like, I look at that sentence or that paragraph kind of like an onion, and there's different layers. And depending on where the listeners of this show might be in their life, you know, so one listener might be at the top layer where they're still in school doing a major that they know is not right for them. But as you know, I'm sure it just goes deeper and there's levels to it. And even once you become an artist, it's like deconstructing being a cool artist, you know, is like a whole other thing, and like doing what you want to do. So let's just take it back, if you can, to that moment when you made that Facebook status, which I was doing some research about, and maybe just share with the listeners what that was.
Oh man.
Yeah, just take us back to that moment where you realized
Okay.
that you were not on the right path there.
So, as you mentioned in that paragraph, I was studying biomedical science at U Ottawa, which was a decision I made in retrospect to impress the people around me, specifically my father, my grandmother, and kind of the circles around them, because I really wanted to be that good son, that good grandson that they could be proud of. There are a lot of layers to that I'd love to dive into as well, but okay, back to my story. Yeah, so I was pursuing this goal that I thought I wanted. I really thought I wanted it. And in the pursuit of this thing, I was so focused, like so insanely focused on being as perfect as possible, on getting every single answer right, everything, memorizing everyone else's words and regurgitating them onto scantrons so that a robot could tell me that I was a really good robot, essentially, right? Like really just so robotic, so focused on what other people were saying. And throughout this process, there was no sense of, checking in on how I was doing, how I was feeling. It was completely outside of my heart, my perspective. And yeah, so, at the end of the semester, my grades came back. This was, I guess, early January 2017. My grades came back to me, and I had gotten A plus in every single course. And this was my pre-med program. Like, this was one of the hardest programs in school. And I was like, oh yeah, like I'm the shit. Like I did it. I did everything that I set out to do. And, you know, I felt very compelled to brag about this, essentially, and to show the world how great I was. Show them, wow, look at me. Look what I just did. But I wanted to do it in a cool way so it didn't look like I was bragging. So I spent like I spent like an hour drafting up like one or two sentences for a Facebook status, like drafting it up, erasing it, redrafting it like over and over again till I got like the perfect humble brag that wouldn't make me seem too cocky, but really I was showing people like I'm the shit. And I posted it, and it blew up, like I was getting so much engagement, more than I'd ever
Right.
gotten on any Facebook status before. It was like just people messaging me and, oh my God, we're so proud of you. Like, look at you go. Like, you're going to be a doctor. I don't remember exactly what I said. It was something like, I just got a perfect GPA in school. Med school, here I come. And like I was just sitting there like refreshing the page, like, yeah, give me some more of that fucking dopamine, like, yeah, give it to me, like, approve of me more. And I was like just like a lab rat, just like refreshing. And I did this so many times until my laptop like fucking died on me, right? Like my laptop actually died. And like when your laptop turns off, there's a black screen in front of you, like a black mirror. And there was this like really crazy moment where I just saw my reflection in the laptop screen, and it just kind of like it brought my awareness back into myself, because my awareness was completely scattered outward based on what everyone else thought, what everyone else said, and regurgitating that and basically trying to fit into the archetype of who they would like. And this moment like was this punch to my face, essentially. Look inside of yourself. And I looked so, I didn't recognize myself. I looked so empty, like so empty. I had bags under my eyes. I was exhausted. And I looked around and I was so lonely. Like, sure, on Facebook, all these people were approving of me, but I was so focused on this that I wasn't hanging out with people. I wasn't connecting with people. And I was so caught up in this ego identity and this kind of superiority complex that I was like, if I did interact with someone, they didn't really connect with me because they weren't interacting with the real me. So there was this really humongous kind of like whoa moment. And after that day, there was like a huge shift in me where my awareness was like back. I was back to myself, and I was so aware of how unhappy I was and everything that I did in my life, trying to fit into this box, this archetype, this this narrative. Every second of every day that I tried to fit into that, I was so aware of the fact that it wasn't me. It was false. It was for other people. And over time, this really ate away at me. And I started looking elsewhere. I started realizing like, wow, I need to bring the awareness back to myself. And eventually, after switching programs a few times and like trying to think, oh, what if I went here? What if I went there? And bouncing around places, I realized, you know what? No, I need to drop out. I need to take time off of school, and I need to have space for me to explore myself. And that's when I dropped out of school the first time. Yeah. So that's the intro
Yeah.
to my story.
Yeah, man. Thank you for sharing. And it's such a powerful story because I think, first of all, it's something that we can all relate to. And, depending on what you believe about our karma or, why people enter into this world in different situations, we all have our own path. And some people really need to go through a lot of an intense version of that, and other people maybe don't need to go through such an intense version of it. Sounds like you had a really intense moment there. And this part that sticks out the most to me is the fact that that was not like one light bulb moment, and then after that, you were just like this perfectly realized artistic force. It's like, that's why I started this off by saying it's really like an onion. And the thing that I kept thinking back to when you were talking, and I would love to continue on, well, like keep going through your story because I just think it's so fascinating, was I was relating back a lot of those same mechanisms of self-doubt or insecurity or outsourcing your sense of approval and belonging to other people. I've noticed them at play in me even years well beyond when I decided to become an artist. It's like it never actually goes away. It's just about your ability to catch it and be aware of it gets better and better, and you start noticing more nuanced ways that you're abandoning yourself, like more subtle
Mm.
ways that you're still doing it. So, okay, so you left school, you took some time to get space for yourself, but then you said that that was the first time. So what happened? What influenced you to go back to school after that?
There's quite a gap in between those two moments, like where a lot of stuff happened. First of all, I love what you just said about kind of the process of continual realignment. That's something that's actually been coming up for me a lot recently, is the fact that, or this realization that life really is a constant process of recalibration to your true nature. And that, all these events and things happening, they're gonna test you and try to get you off your rocker, and you're just gonna get stronger and stronger over time if you continue walking the path. So I love what you just said there. Back to the story. So I dropped out that first time, and I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea where I was going to go. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I dove really deeply into personal development stuff. I took a shit ton of courses. I invested pretty much all the money I was making at my job into personal development stuff because I was still living at home. I'm really grateful that I had the space that I had to do that and the privilege to do that. But I invested a lot of money into my growth. and into learning. So I was reading a book a week. I remember at one point, just like devouring, inspiring, empowering content and just diving deep into myself, doing, I was introduced to shadow work. I was introduced to all these new modalities that I'd never even heard of. And I just got so fascinated by the concept of, discovering who you really are. And along this journey, I actually got introduced to the power of psychedelics. And I had this experience. I went up to my friend's cottage with a few buddies, and I had recently started filming again because I'd loved taking videos and making Call of Duty animations when I was a teenager. It was something that I'd kind of hidden from the world, but I loved editing videos. And I'd started, I'd picked up my dad's camera again. I'd done a few collaborative projects with some friends, just kind of embarrassed about it. But I was like, had my feet in the water. And I brought the camera up to this cottage with a few of my buddies. And I was taking photos of them and videos of them in the morning. And kind of had this feeling of like, oh, fuck, like, is this annoying? Am I annoying them that I'm taking these photos? Like, this is, I don't really feel comfortable. Maybe I should just put my camera away. But then we all ingested, a couple grams of mushrooms together. And just going to fast forward a little bit, about an hour into our experience, we were all in a circle talking about how each one of us brought something really unique and special to the group that we were in. So my friend Patty was saying, yeah, Tyler, he's like the dad of the group, he's just got everyone. He keeps everything together. Adam's like a fucking idiot goofball and he just makes us all laugh. And he looked at me in the eyes and he said, and Theo, oh my God, he's so creative. And his words just like smacked my soul. It was another one of those slaps to the face, where it was just like, oh my God, like my spirit like burst out of my body and was like, holy shit. My creativity is actually a gift to these people. My creativity is actually one of my greatest assets. Wow, what a concept. So maybe those dreams that I had when I was a kid, maybe those ideas of being an artist, of being creative, maybe that's actually possible for myself. And it planted another seed. And that experience led me on another path where I was like starting to explore, wow, what if I could do that? And yeah, there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot of story there. But where can I go from there?
So maybe just to maybe try to guide that a little bit. Well, one thing that really stood out to me is you mentioned that you dove really deep into self-development. And I think one thing that you and I seem to have in common is we're both artists, but we're both also seekers. And, we have this, I feel in you a similar, and not even just based on what you said, but just in the way that you're just embodying it, I feel a similar thirst for truth and knowledge. And I think something that really stood out to me about you when I first found your page and started diving into your whole world is I think that there is this kind of this new generation of, let's just call them like more conscious artists who are really curious about we could say spiritual or deeper reasons for why they want to create and for why it's so healing for their soul. And it's not just enough to just like make something because it looks cool. I mean, like that's great. Like I love doing that too. Like I love just like making a dope beat or whatever. But like there's this deeper mission to actually use that to be of service. And something that I was curious about when you were talking about all the self-development is that I've certainly been in this phase many times in my life. Honestly, right now I am a bit as well, even though I'm creating a lot right now, where sometimes you can intake so much information and it can start to become a full-time job just to be like meditating and making sure that your vibe is high, man, and like all that stuff, and like that starts to take up so much of your life and your space that you can sometimes lose track of the actual gift that if you just organically were just doing it and giving it, and I want to get into your 365 a day video challenge because I did something very similar with music this year, that a lot of those deeper existential spiritual needs would be taken care of. So I guess my question is, when you were in that initial phase where you were going through all that self-development material, were you creating at the same time, or did that sort of come after? I don't know if that moment was like a moment that shifted that. You know what I mean?
That's a great question. Yeah, the personal development work and the art, they didn't seem related at first. I was doing the work, the personal growth work, and just kind of synchronistically, I guess, in retrospect, people started asking me if I wanted to make stuff with them, and opportunities started showing up, and I started following them because it interested me. And then that started planting seeds of, oh, what if I could do this? Or what if I tried this? And maybe I want to do video. Maybe I want to make music. Wait, what would that look like? What if I want to do photo as well? Is it possible for me to do all these things? So that was kind of what the work was there. But over time, what I started to realize was that the creative stuff actually showed me more about myself than the personal growth work did. It actually started to become a deeper teacher on who I actually am and what I love doing. And it connected me with people. And slowly over time, it actually became my personal growth work, more so than, doing the reading or like courses or even meditation. Because, the act of painting is very meditative. The act of editing a video is very meditative as well for me. The act of shooting a video and capturing someone's essence is like one of the most, it's like, to me, like watching God. It's like capturing the divine being manifest through another person. At least there are moments like that. And yeah, so in essence, over time, I realized that the power of creativity, I didn't see this when I was younger. I didn't see it as a creative or a healing force, but I realized that it actually was the ultimate way for me to heal myself. And then I realized that the impact that my art had on other people was also just in and of itself an act of service, like a real gift. And that as I liberate my expression, I give others the permission to do the same in their lives. And that is a gift. And I just want to touch on something that you said earlier, how, creating something cool isn't necessarily enough. I don't fully agree with that, because to me, creating anything, whether it's a piece of like, this was initially just a mess, this painting I have next to me. It was literally just, I'm going to make a mess on a canvas. That act of just expressing to yourself, even if it's quote unquote shitty, is healing to yourself. And as you heal yourself, you heal the world. So I really believe that any act of creative expression can have a really beautiful ripple effect in the world.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, man, because I think you might have just touched on, it's something I'm aware of, but I think you called attention to a little shadow that I still have around feeling like my work is actually the amount of time and energy that I put into it, hours and hours of just like sitting in front of Ableton, compressing a snare or whatever, like feeling like it's a worthy use of my time, and like, and not getting hung up comparing to like anybody else or what anybody else's path is. And sometimes I do put that pressure on myself. And I think, maybe a lot of other artists can relate, where it's like, is this enough? Like, is it enough to just like make this cool beat? But to your point, if it really brings you to life and allows you to really express yourself creatively and be an example for others, then that is your gift, and that's something that I've actually recently with music really been tuning into, which is once I decided that, okay, I'm a DJ, I'm an artist, like I'm used to playing in clubs. Clubs are cool. They're not always like the most quote unquote conscious place, but they can be. A lot of that has to do with the intention that I, as the DJ, bring, to the club or whatever it is. But how can I actually like infuse my intention, my personal life intention, which is to help as many people as I can just feel safe to be themselves. To me, that's like the biggest sickness that I've seen in myself and in others that I really want to do my part in helping with. And not getting too hung up in what the actual form that takes is.
Yes.
For me, like, I was like, okay, I want to make healing music. And like, when someone says healing music, what do you think? You think of like, like new age stuff or like people chanting like Hare Krishna or whatever. And the fact is, like, when I sit down to make music, that's not what comes out of me. What comes out of me is like dance floor, like bangers, like pop
Mm-hmm.
records, like just like cheesy pop songs where the lyrics on the surface is just sounds like, pop lyrics, but it's like I'm actually singing to God, and it's like, and if 1% of the listeners understand that, then it's like I've done my job. And so thank you for saying that, because I think the last thing I'll just say on that is, if anyone listening can relate to that sense of like judgment of like, am I doing enough, or isn't enough to just be an artist, or, right? Like there's so much suffering in the world. Can't I do more? Like really get curious about where that voice is coming from. And if that's actually your voice, or if that was like, put into you by someone else. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And to bring it back to you, you do so many different things. Do you feel like there is a unifying intention underneath all of them? Do you think that matters, or do you think it's more about just, allowing yourself to express whatever is coming through in the moment?
Mm. Yes, and both. I think that's actually the unifying force, is this desire to express myself, just for me to express myself and to be free, and then also to allow other people to feel free as well. That's the unifying intention behind everything I do. And it's not like I'm always consciously thinking, oh, how can I make someone else feel safe to be themselves? It's actually never a conscious thing. That's just what my core desire is. Like, as a being, that's just what I really want to do underneath everything. And I think that I was only really able to find this sense of purpose. A lot of people talk about like, yo, find your purpose, find your purpose. I guess that could be defined as my purpose. That could be something that I could say, oh yeah, my purpose is that. I don't really like to define it, but I only really found that through exploration and trying things and making mistakes and making a mess and really just bouncing up against the walls and exploding and all kinds of expression, right? And I don't know if that answers your question. Was that in alignment?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
But yeah, just back to what you said about how your expression, the songs that come through you being, dance floor or dance hall music, being not necessarily the archetype of healing music. I just want to say, like, yo, that music is extremely healing. Like, trap music is extremely healing to Black communities in America, right? It doesn't seem necessarily positive, or, you might not make this connection between that and God, but if, like, that is the liberation of who they really are, or what their experience really is. And it can be incredibly empowering for communities, right? To just be able to speak their truth and like the reality of their situation, and to be heard and celebrated. That's so divine. That's so healing, you know? And even if the music isn't quote unquote good, right? Like, if you look at a child, the act of drawing something for them can be so liberating and so exciting. It doesn't look like well, actually, I was going to say a Picasso painting, but actually Picasso's later paintings do look like that
Right.
for a reason, right? Like, he started being able to draw everything perfectly, and then he reverted back, or, progressed backwards, paradoxically, to that childlike expression. And I guess the essence of what I'm trying to say is that expressing yourself, just allowing the flow of expression to move through you in whatever way that takes is incredibly healing to yourself and the planet. And it is so fucking important. It is so important. And it is a huge gift. So, those of us listening, please, please, please remember that your expression in all of its spectrum is a fucking gift. And we're grateful for it.
Beautifully said, man. It reminds me of a quote. I forget. I think it's Thomas of Aquinas, but it's there's this amazing quote that I just heard yesterday, actually, and it was exactly what you're saying. It was. I'm not gonna get it perfectly right, but the gist was, if you bring forth that which is within you, it will liberate you. It will set you free. And if you do not bring forth that which is within you, then it will slowly and eventually destroy you.
Yes.
And I think this is like the crux of why, this is probably what you were feeling to some degree when you posted that status, and you were like, damn, I'm getting all of everything that I was told would satisfy me. And then the computer screen goes black and you look at yourself and you're like, that is not the face of a satisfied person. Like, I don't feel that. And I think this is where I want to go deeper into the onion now, because that applies over and over again. And like you said, you said it perfectly. It's a constant process of refinement and continually attuning yourself back into that alignment. I know for me, like, I've been DJing for, 10 years, and I'm slowly starting to notice how I love DJing. It's super fun. It's really satisfying for my ego because I'm like up there. I'm like the man DJing. Everybody's like, "Oh, it's so cool. It's great." And I'm not trying to shame that. Our egos need to be satisfied. Like, we're human beings. We're not here to just like transcend everything. We're already on our way there anyway, so there's no rush. So like, might as well just like, enjoy the ride. But I have been feeling called to the thing that is really deeply fulfilling and nourishing to my soul over the long term. Doesn't mean that every day is great, is just sitting down. And it's like that Zen saying, chop wood, carry water. It's just like, sit down and just open Ableton and just create, and just show up and just like do my part so the universe can meet me halfway. And that feels really inspiring, and fulfilling, but not in a way that necessarily immediately satisfies my need for recognition or my need for validation or even my need for money. And I think that finding that balance, because between what fulfills you and ultimately having to be the same thing, but also understanding that we are humans and like we need community, we need to survive. That's really important. And I'm really curious about, for you, how you look at that. Like, if you agree or if you look at it in maybe a different way, because you do coaching like me, you do one-on-one coaching with people. We probably do very similar coaching in terms of just like helping people access their authenticity a little bit more. But you're also a very multidisciplinary artist. How do all of those fit together to you? Are they distinct? Like, this is what I do to make money, this is what fulfills me, or is it more of a, one thing kind of thing for you?
That is such an awesome question, man. Oh my God. That's such a powerful question. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. It's been a very interesting journey with making money as an artist. We're told growing up, artists don't make money, artists don't make money, artists don't make money. And when I decided to be an artist, I was like, you know what? I'm going to prove that wrong. I'm going to make money as an artist, motherfucker. Like, fuck you. I'm not going to be a starving artist.
Right.
And then I started and I was like, holy fuck, I'm starving. you know, so there is truth to both things. I would say that when I dropped out of school the second time, which I did essentially because I had failed at being an artist once. And I thought, oh, why don't I go back to school? This isn't working. Then I went back to school and I was like, wow, fuck, I hate my life. I need to keep going. And I dropped out very publicly. I made a full ass blog post explaining why, like, let me just share what's coming up for me. And that's when I decided, you know what? No, I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to make money doing it. I'm going to find a way no matter what. And I was just kind of open. I was like, how do I do this? I have no idea. But I dropped out. I had no plan. I had barely any money. And I was just kind of in this basement in Toronto, like, what the fuck do I do? And I ended up getting some guidance that said, you know what, Theo, you're really good at making videos. You're really good at it. Commit to it. Just commit to it for a year. Do it every day for a year and see what happens. I said, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna try that. That sounds really good. Like, it gives me a structure. I'm gonna do it every day. I'm gonna see what happens. So I started posted every day for, I would say a week. And then I got a DM asking how much I charged to make videos. And I'm really grateful that I got that DM. But I ended up, getting in touch with a mentor who took me under his wing, and he kind of showed me what it was like to be a videographer and what that meant. And he started handing me clients, and I paid my first bill completely off of my video, my art. And, I continued down this path. And what's interesting about that is that I had my daily videos that I was doing, and I was doing them not to get paid, right? I was just posting. I was just expressing myself. I was doing the work for myself to express myself, to put it out there. And that process not only taught me that I couldn't do everything perfectly and that I would just need to like make something every day. I couldn't necessarily make a masterpiece every day, but it also taught me that when I did express myself imperfectly, people still resonated. People still liked it. It still added value. So it taught me that. And on top of that, I also was creating for other people, in service to other people and companies and businesses and all these sort of things, where I was getting paid to do it as a service. And I think that it's really important to realize that these are both art. Because I think a lot of us, we think, oh, well, if I'm making money doing a service for someone, making something for someone, that isn't art. Oh, but when I'm making something for myself, that's real art. Like, we have this pretentious notion of real art, not real art.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. I see both of those things being creative expression, that's art. And even if you're not making money from just you expressing yourself in whatever way you want, doesn't mean that you're not a successful artist. It doesn't mean that you're not an artist. It doesn't mean that that's not valuable. And just because you're making money from something that may not be fully authentic to yourself or may not feel like you're fully expressing, that doesn't make you any less of an artist either. And I think that when we can recognize the integration of service as well as just self-expression and how these two things actually tie together really beautifully, we can find a lot of liberation in that. Like, coaching to me is art. It's such art. I'm making money off of it, but it's art. Building my business is art. It's all creative. I'm making. And yeah, now I have a bunch of different income streams that are all aligned with what I love doing. And I still make art on the side just for myself. So I hope that kind of gives you a bit of a picture of my perspective on that.
I think that's so beautifully said, man. And yeah, especially what you said about not creating these distinctions about whether something's art based on who the audience is for. And you nailed it. It's like art is creative expression. And I would just add to that, in service to some community. That community could be you, it could be a community of one person, and no one ever sees it, but it's still in service to a community. That community just happens to be you or your cat or whoever. Or the community could be a Fortune 500 company's customers, or the community could be the Fortune 500 company, because you can tell that the brief you got isn't really for the customers, it's for the VP to impress his boss or whatever. And like, that's where you can be discerning about, is this a community that I'm interested in serving? At least from my perspective, it's not to say that you're completely, you just take on whatever comes your way. But I think what you said is, it's such a beautiful definition, because it allows us to look at everything as art and then be discerning about who are the communities that I want to serve, that I feel like I can most serve. And the more you feel like you're being of service, the more it makes sense to be compensated for that and to feel worthy and deserving of that, because you're providing a service. And I also really love what you said about coaching, because honestly, that's really helpful for me because I've just started coaching. I have a few clients now, and people ask me like what kind of coaching I do. I don't even really like that word because it's not like I have something that I'm going to give someone and then they're going to be, it's like, no, when I get on a Zoom call with someone or in person, it's like, it is a creative unfolding moment to moment of like, how can we meet each other in this moment and how can I help you get clarity and make it so radically not about me so that I'm purely, and that's actually, I've spoken to this on other shows and to some friends. I don't know if you feel the same way, but coaching for me is like such an amazing compliment to the whole like me having my identity as an artist, because there's just zero narcissism involved. Like there's like zero room for any narcissism to creep in, because if I start making it about me, then I'm like no longer present with the person. And it's like, it's really beautiful. But thank you for saying that, because that's such a good way to look at it. And I feel like so many people, myself included, can get caught up in this because we live in a culture, like you said earlier, that has such an emphasis on finding your purpose, and like as if that's just one static thing that you're like assigned at birth and like you just got to like do that thing. And so for people like us who have so many different interests and we want to be of service in so many different ways, it can feel hard to be like, oh, well, I'm not focused on any one thing. But when you just loosen your definition of what it means to be an artist, then that allows for so much more space. And then you can really, you create a structure within which you can flow and do all kinds of things.
Beautiful,
Yeah, man.
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I love what you just said. Specifically about the coaching stuff, heavily, heavily relate to that. When I enter a coaching session, kind of the way that I see it, I'd love to hear if you resonate with this. I kind of see myself as, okay, so let's say they're a seed, right? They're a seed. There's a seed of their creativity and it's planted in the ground. What I'm doing really is I'm creating safety for that seed to just grow in the way that it's naturally going to grow, right? I'm creating like a boundary and a container around it that creates safety. I'm watering it a little bit with, some encouragement. I'm going to ask it some questions. I'm going to see how I can like, maybe alleviate, like take this rock off of it, you know, and I'm seeing, I'm allowing like the light to shine on that seed. I'm seeing, and that naturally will allow a seed to sprout and to grow in whatever way whatever way that it does. All I'm doing is creating a space so that the things don't eat it or destroy it. And that is how creativity naturally blooms. We all have this intelligence, this innate thing within us that just will naturally spring forth into this beautiful flower if we have the right conditions in place. Would you agree with that?
100%. And I would add to that, and I know I'm guessing that you agree, but I just want to make this clear for the listeners. I would add to that that's how everything is.
Yeah.
Like that's also how being an art, like forget about coaching. Like if you want to be like the biggest pop star on earth and your reasons for wanting to do that are, let's just go to the extreme, just completely narcissistic and like just, it's literally just because like you have attachment issues and like you need to be famous, whatever. Like if that's the reason, even then the best way to do that is to do exactly what you just said, which is to realize that there is a divine seed of creation in you, just in the same way that we can't explain why there's life and not life. It's like, why is there this inexplicable drive to progress and like greater complexity? Like there's no answer to that. And so in the same way, it's like creating that structure for that. That's actually how you allow the art to grow. And honestly, man, that's something I'm really learning more and more as I let go of the wrong reasons, or let's not say wrong, but less skillful reasons for doing things. I remember when I first started making music, the first year that I was really serious about it was 2017. And I set all these goals for myself. And I was like, I want 10 million streams on Spotify. I want to be on the cover of a Spotify playlist. I want to play Terminal 5, this huge venue in New York. And it was great because at that moment, that was the level that I was at. And I really had something to prove to myself, to my parents, I have a very similar story to you. Like I quit my job, was broke, had to get a job again, like went to business school, like just running around like a chicken with my head cut off for a long time. I mean, I'm always in that state to a degree, but
Yeah,
yeah. But
same, brother.
now I'm just more okay with it, you know? So, and I remember I reached all those goals. Like everything I decided to do that year, it happened somehow magically. It was just like, it just manifested. And I was happy for like 5 seconds. And then I was like, all right, now I need like 25 million streams or whatever. And what I'm learning slowly, because it's like the desire for recognition and love is so strong in us, and there's nothing wrong with it, is just like you said, instead of trying to like force the seed to grow in the direction that you want it to grow and like constantly be bending it towards the sunlight because you're scared of it moving away from the sunlight for a day or two or a week or a year even, and you can't handle that, just creating a structure where it's safe to just fully explore wherever it needs to go and trusting that that will get you where you want to be. And it's a long process, man, you know, and it's very counterintuitive to how we think about creativity and how artists are talked about in culture. Like we talk about people like they're like, oh, he's a creative genius, or like he was just born with this. It's like, no, the genius is the seed, and the person we're calling the genius is a really good gardener.
Ooh, that's a bar, man. Fucking, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Oh
Right.
my God. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Rant over for now.
Holy shit.
I feel like we're gonna
Wow.
have to do like multiple episodes, bro. Like this, we're
I
just
think
scratching
so.
the surface here.
I think so, man. Wow. They're a really good gardener. That is incredible.
Well, Theo, we are about at the 50-minute mark. I do have a question that I ask all my guests, and I'm gonna ask it to you in a second. But before we get to that, and I definitely would love to have you on again, because
Totally. Me too.
honestly, like we were literally just scratching the surface, and I'm noticing in my brain like how I could go on for hours. But for this first round, is there anything that is coming to mind right now in this moment? Anything you want to share before we wrap it up with that final question?
No, there's nothing coming up right now. I feel pretty good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So the question that I ask all my guests, and no need for a deep answer, it's just like whatever comes to your mind in this moment, is what makes you feel the most free?
What makes me feel the most free? What a question. Me. I do. I'm the only one who can. I am the only one who can make myself feel free in every moment. It's giving myself the permission to express myself and to just trust whatever comes through me. The decision to trust myself and to recognize that no matter how the world in front of me responds to that, as long as I trust that within myself, I will be free, because that's who I really am. And that applies to, when I'm approaching a canvas, if I decide to trust myself and to just, throw the paint on. Okay, now I'm going to trust this brush stroke and the next one. But that also applies to, it applies to love. It applies to when I feel this overwhelming desire to kiss my girlfriend, even though it might not be the right time to do it. When I really trust that and I go fucking all in and I just fully express that, it ends up being the perfect moment for me to do it. It applies to business. It applies to everything in life. And when we decide to really trust ourselves and take the leap of faith that it is to unapologetically express who we are, is the greatest gift we can give. And to me, that is freedom. I feel complete with that.
Swaha.
Aho, brother. Thank you so much for having me on here. This has been so. You're a great mirror, and you really do create a beautiful space to allow people to let it flow. I really deeply appreciate the space that you held today and the space that you continue to hold. It's really, really, really important. And it's really nice to see that there are people out there who are on the same mission as I am. So thank you.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, I could not agree more about everything you just said. Right back at you. Like, I really, really feel like a kindred connection here, and I'm really looking forward to
Mhm.
more conversations. And I'll link to all your stuff in the show notes so people can check out everything that you're doing.
Beauty.
And yeah, and hopefully we'll link in person at some point. Whenever it happens will be the perfect time.
That would be amazing. Yes. All in divine time. All in divine time.
All right, brother.
Cool.
Take care.
Take care, man. Peace.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this conversation with Theo Zgraggen. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Like I said, Theo is such a cool and inspirational dude, and I'm definitely looking forward to having him back on the show soon. But in the meantime, be sure to check out everything that he's up to. I've included a bunch of links to his socials and his various endeavors in the show notes. And if you're enjoying the show, if you're getting a lot of value out of this, it would mean the world to us if you could follow, subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast, and also leave us a 5-star review. That really helps us move up in the rankings in the podcast world so that we can bring these enlightening conversations to more people. And if you'd also like to dive into some of the stuff that we were talking about with regards to coaching, as you guys may know, I'm offering free exploratory 30-minute coaching calls with the intention to create a safe space for you to get more clear about how you want to authentically live your life and how you want to express yourself in a way that feels unique and aligned to you. So if that sounds interesting, you can find the link to sign up for that in the show notes as well. Till next time, guys, take care. Love you all.